So it seems that we've got more Games Workshop Space Marine reveals today, with a new fancy lieutenant for 10th edition. Today in a Warhammer community article, Games Workshop have confirmed another very likely model that we were getting from the reveal trailer. It looks like the Phobos lieutenant is absolutely definitely in, and with a rather funky new model with some very big Tyrannic War Veteran vibes. Let's talk a bit about all the fun details on the new model, look at a few comparisons versus the other Space Marine lieutenants and other releases in the past, and talk about what his war gear might mean in game. Hello and welcome back to Warspecs Tactics, where Games Workshop is keeping the 10th edition model previews coming pretty steadily. Today we've got a look at a shiny new Phobos lieutenant, and another rather fancy reveal trailer with a 360-degree view of the model once more. I strongly suspect that the model previews that we're getting at the moment will basically all be present in the launch box for Tyranids vs Space Marines. It has been rumoured to be called Leviathan, and this guy seemed like a model that was basically fairly confirmed already, as we had seen him make a very prominent appearance in the reveal trailer. He certainly seemed to be a character, seeing as he was taking a starring role in the Force and didn't really have a unit that was backing him up in the same sort of garb, and knowing Games Workshop, they wouldn't resist a chance to release yet another version of a Primaris Lieutenant, so here we have Primaris Lieutenant in Phobos armour with a combi flamer. Games Workshop does seem to like saturating their own markets about as much as they possibly can with these Primaris Lieutenants, but I must admit this one does feel like at least quite a cool one. He very much seems to be the Tyranid-hunting Lieutenant. A fair few details on the model and his base do harken to his fight against the Tyranids of Leviathan. I must admit though, I do think it's still kind of daft that we're up to Primaris Lieutenant around about number 15 now. We've got generic ones, the Indomitus one, unique sculpts for certain events, and the Imperium magazine, a few chapter-specific ones, and a few in Phobos armour, plus Games Workshop's new multi-part one that came out kind of recently. That one at least had the majority of options for the standard ones, so they didn't all have to be tied to unique monopose models. Weapons and equipment wise, this guy is a Phobos lieutenant. It does appear that he's a Phobos lieutenant as opposed to a Reaver lieutenant, as he's got the Phobos mask on but doesn't have the Reaver skull mask. I guess that means that he'll probably get the Phobos style rules, but not necessarily any anti-morale ones like the Primaris shock troopers get. It looks like he's not packing anything like a grav chute jump pack like the other Phobos lieutenant did as well, so I guess he's going to be getting into battle just on foot, as opposed to dropping in or bouncing around on grapnel hooks like some of his battle brothers. Otherwise, in terms of weapons, he's got a pair of combat blades. They're the ones that are usually carried by the Primaris Incursors, the ones that give them an extra AP-1 in combat, so perhaps a little bit more dangerous than the Infiltrators there. We do get to see him plant one of those in an unlucky Tyranid in that reveal video that we had. Then his main weapon is a Primaris Combi Flamer. It does seem that combi weapons are making an appearance a bit more than they ever have been before for Primaris. It looks like we've got an entire squad of Sternguard style veterans armed with them coming up at some point soon. So quite cool to see these iconic Space Marine armaments making their way into the new and funky range. Looks like on this one they've decided to go for him fighting with the combat blades as opposed to drawing the combi flamer. I guess there's probably not going to be an option to have him fight with both of them. In game, I guess that means he's going to have a bit more bite against regular light infantry, but there probably still isn't going to be all that much a threat to things like Space Marines or other heavies. Otherwise, I think that the coolest thing about this guy is that he seems to be decked out like an old school Ultramarines Tyrannic War Veteran. They really have gone quite heavy on the theming here. His right shoulder pad is repaired by a bit of Tyranid carapace and kind of belted in place there. Very rough and ready battlefield repairs, I suppose. His face seems to have attracted the attention of an unfriendly Tyranid. That one seems to have scarred him a fair bit, with a bunch of parallel scars. His knife's got some sort of venom or Tyranid guts dripping off it, I don't like to think which. And then he's got one of those combat blades planted in an unlucky Tyranid on his base, perhaps referencing the one that he was casually killing in the trailer. Kind of cool to have quite so much theme on a model. I think it's quite nice to give him a fair amount of character, to be honest. He does feel like he's also going to be one of the characters that's kind of the poster child of the edition, perhaps alongside those new and resculpted Terminators. Otherwise, most of the armour looks fairly typical for Phobos Marines. As I said, looks more Phobos than Reaver. He's got a bunch of grenades on the bandoliers slung about him, plus a few other pouches and things. Very much the Primaris tactical style infiltrator armour. As I mentioned, I strongly suspect that this guy will probably be coming in the actual launch box, the Leviathan one. That would probably mean that he's a monopose one. I kind of feel like it might have been nice to have a flexible Phobos lieutenant, to be honest, seeing as there's now 3 different loadouts for them, and one that can build each one of the 3. Otherwise, just for a few other comparisons, here's the Phobos Lieutenant compared with the Indomitus Lieutenant that we had last edition. I thought that miniature was really quite a nice one as well, really quite a lot of character, and fit in very nicely alongside the Blade Guard veterans. For a bit of a comparison to the other flavours of Phobos Armoured Lieutenant, here's him next to the Reaver one in the middle and the regular Phobos one on the right. The Phobos one is currently only available in the Combat Patrol Space Marines box set, and he's armed with the combat blades and a mastercrafted bolt carbine. He's got the grav chute as well with the little fins at the back, which don't appear to be present on the Tyranid Hunter one. Generally pretty similar in aesthetics there, all ready to lead some various flavours of infiltration marines to victory. Finally, here's him side by side from a still from the trailer that we had. Really quite a good likeness. I think that given that we're getting all of these ones that do match the reveal trailer, it definitely ups the likelihood for all the other variants that we saw there. They really are being quite faithful from the models to the cinematic. For in-game, obviously, for 10th edition, all the datasheets are being reset, so we can't be too sure about anything. I feel like without good reason to, though, there's not really a massive amount of reason to differentiate him from what they've had before. I suspect that as with the standard Phobos Lieutenant, you'll probably be able to forward deploy him if you want to, but this one wouldn't be able to deep strike without a grav chute. The paired combat blades give him AP-1 currently. I suppose not impossible that they might give him something like an extra attack if they do decide to rewrite the rules somehow. And that Combi Flamer is going to make him a bit more of a threat than some of the others, though mainly against light infantry. If I'd had to guess, I would suspect that this guy might not necessarily be enormously efficient in game. Typically, if you are going to upgrade a character with some sort of war gear, generally it often pays to have them best against heavy hitting targets, which I think is one of the reasons why the Indomitus Lieutenant was quite such a popular model in armies going forward. Getting access to that mastercrafted power sword made him really quite a meaty melee threat, plus that storm shield is extra nice on lieutenants that don't get the Iron Halo save that the captains get. I'm maybe just a little bit skeptical as to whether or not doubling down on anti-infantry with that Combi Flamer is really going to be the best play. Obviously though, if he's very cheap in points, that could certainly change things. Finally, for model reveals so far, here's a countdown towards my very rough predicted 10th edition box contents. We probably won't be getting all of this exactly, but I feel like it's going to be something close. So far we've seen the entire squad of Terminators with 1 assault cannon and power sword plus a teleport homer, plus at least 5 termagants out of that squad, though probably a full squad of 10, and now we can tick off the Phobos Lieutenant as well. I have a feeling that we'll be keeping these coming at a fairly steady rate. It'll be interesting to check back and see how we're getting on later. Let me know what you think of the model anyway. Has Games Workshop done a good job with this one? And do you like them going down the dedicated character theme to hunting Tyranids? Look forward to hearing your thoughts down in the comments. If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, or I'll certainly keep the regular 40k videos coming. I do tend to post new ones most days, and I will try and keep up with the news and rumours of 10th. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well, and you can find that links down in the video description if you'd like to help support new videos coming out. Channel patrons do get a few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.